My name's Mason. I'm 34, a guy who spent the last decade of his life making sure my parents didn't drown in their own mess. I'm not talking about grand gestures here, just the basics. Paying their utility bills when they came up short, fixing the roof on their creaky old house in Ohio when the shingles started peeling off, hauling groceries up their front steps because Margaret, my mom, can't carry the bags anymore. It's who I am. I work construction, long hours swinging a hammer, and I've never minded coming home with sore hands if it meant they were okay. My parents, Henry and Margaret, still live in the same two-story I grew up in, the one with the chipped paint and the porch swing that squeaks like it's begging for oil. I figured it was my job to keep it standing. My sister Chloe, she's a different story. Chloe's 27, the kind of person who drifts through life like it's one big art project she'll finish someday. She's bounced from waitressing to yoga, instructing to some vague, online influencer gig that never took off. Last I checked, she was living in a rented studio an hour away, posting selfies with captions about finding her vibe. Meanwhile, I've been the one wiring money to Henry when the heating bill spiked or patching the drywall after a pipe burst. Chloe's never lifted a finger, not once. I didn't care. I told myself family's family and I was the steady one, until that Saturday. It started simple enough. I was over at their place, sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of black coffee, cooling in my hand. Margaret had called me over to help with some paperwork. She's hopeless with anything that doesn't come with step-by-step instructions. She once asked me how to email a photo, and I spent an hour walking her through it. So there I was, sorting through a pile of junk mail and overdue notices, when I spotted it. A thick manila envelope tucked under a stack of catalogs. The label read Estate Documents in Henry's blocky handwriting. My gut twisted. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. Curiosity's a hell of a thing. I slid the envelope open, telling myself it was no big deal. Just checking. The first page was their will, dated 6 months ago. I skimmed it, expecting the usual split, half to me, half to Chloe, maybe a little extra for her since she's figuring things out. But as I read, my stomach dropped like I'd missed a step going downstairs. Everything, the house, their savings, even Dad's prized 1967 Mustang he'd spent years restoring, was going to Chloe. Every damn thing. Me? Not a mention. Well, unless you count the line at the bottom, we love both our children dearly. Love, sure. Nothing says love like cutting your son out of the picture after he's kept you afloat for years. I sat there, gripping the paper so hard the edges crumpled. My knuckles went white. Was this a mistake? Had they always seen me as the mule, the guy who'd just keep trudging along while Chloe got the reward for doing nothing? I couldn't breathe right. The kitchen felt too small, the air too thick. Margaret's voice cut through the haze. "Mason, honey, you done yet?" She was in the living room, fussing with a throw pillow like nothing was wrong. Henry was out back, tinkering with his lawnmower. I didn't answer her. I stood up, the will still in my hand, and walked straight in there. "Is this real?" My voice came out low, steady, but there was an edge to it I couldn't hide. I held the paper up. Margaret's eyes widened, her hand freezing mid-fluff. Henry stepped inside just then, wiping grease off his fingers with a rag. He saw what I was holding and sighed, like I'd caught him forgetting to take out the trash. "Mason, honey," Margaret started, her tone soft, too soft. "Chloe needs it more. You know how she is." I stared at her. "Needs it more?" Henry nodded, stepping closer. "You're solid, son. You've got your job, your life together. She's fragile." Fragile. That word hit me like a slap. Chloe wasn't fragile. She was a freeloader. I'd been busting my ass for them, and they'd handed her the keys to everything. "So that's it?" I said, my voice sharper now. "I keep you going and she gets the prize?" Margaret opened her mouth, but I cut her off. "Good to know where I stand." I dropped the will on the coffee table, turned, and walked out. They called after me, Margaret's voice high and pleading, Henry's gruff, but I didn't stop. The screen door slammed behind me. I got in my truck and drove, the betrayal burning in my chest. I'd been their rock, and they'd just thrown me away. The days after I found the will blurred into each other, each one heavier than the last. I'd wake up, head to the construction site, swing my hammer until my shoulders ached, and come home to a quiet apartment that didn't feel like mine anymore. I kept expecting a call, a text, something from Henry or Margaret to say they'd made a mistake, that they'd seen how much I'd done for them. Nothing came, not a word. I'd stare at my phone, the screen dark, and feel this hot, jagged thing in my chest. Betrayal's funny like that. It doesn't just sting, it festers. I told myself I was done, but part of me still hoped they'd make it right. That hope died 2 weeks later. It was a Thursday evening. I was sprawled on my couch, half watching some car restoration show, when my phone buzzed. Henry's name lit up the screen. My pulse kicked up, but not with relief. Anger, maybe, or dread. The text was short. "Mason, the electric bill's overdue. Can you cover it? I'll pay you back." I read it twice, then laughed. A sharp, bitter sound that echoed in my empty living room. Pay me back? He hadn't paid me back for the last 5 years of bills, repairs, or grocery runs. And now, after handing Chloe everything, he thought I'd just open my wallet like nothing had changed? Like I was still their personal bank? I typed back, my fingers hitting the screen harder than they needed to. "Ask Chloe. It's her house now." I hit send and tossed the phone onto the coffee table. My hands were shaking, not from nerves, but from this raw, pulsing fury I couldn't shake. They didn't care. They'd made their choice, and I was still the guy they called when the lights were about to go out. I waited, half expecting an apology, a follow-up to soften the blow. Nothing. Just silence. The next morning, Margaret tried her hand. Her text came while I was on a lunch break, sitting in my truck with a half-eaten sandwich in my lap. "Mason, honey, don't do this. We're family. We need you." Family. That word hit like a punch. Family doesn't erase you from a will after you've spent years keeping them afloat. Family doesn't reward the one who's never shown up while the other's breaking his back. I didn't respond. I deleted the message, took a bite of my sandwich, and went back to work. The crew noticed I was quieter than usual, but I waved it off. No need to drag them into my mess. Then Chloe weighed in. Her text came late that night, after I'd cracked open a beer and was trying to unwind. "You're overreacting, Mason. Just pay the bill like you always do. It's not a big deal." Not a big deal. I stared at her words, my jaw tight. She was really acting like I was the one being unreasonable, like I should just shrug off being cut out of everything. I typed back, slow and deliberate. "You've got the inheritance, princess. Figure it out." I hit send, then muted her number. I wasn't in the mood for her whining. The silence stretched on after that, but it wasn't as quiet as I thought it'd be. A couple days later, I got a call from Lucas, a buddy who lives a few streets over from my parents. We'd grab beers now and then, swap stories about work. He didn't waste time with small talk. "You hear what's going on at your folks' place?" he asked. I frowned, leaning against my kitchen counter. "No, what's up?" His voice dropped, like he was sharing a secret. "Chloe's been throwing parties over there. Big ones. Kegs in the backyard, cars parked all over the lawn. Neighbors are pissed." I let out a low whistle. Parties? While I was done bailing them out, Chloe was turning their house into a damn frat house? "She's living there now?" I asked, trying to piece it together. Lucas chuckled, but it wasn't a happy sound. "Oh yeah, moved in last week, from what I hear, acting like she owns the place already." I shook my head, the anger flaring up again. Of course she was. They'd handed her the keys to everything, and she was treating it like her personal playground. I thanked Lucas for the heads up and hung up, staring out my window at the streetlights flickering on. I'd told myself I was done, but hearing that, it made it real. I wasn't just stepping back, I was cutting the rope. They wanted Chloe to have it all? Fine, let her deal with the mess. I was out. A month slipped by, and I'd almost gotten used to the quiet. No more texts begging for cash, no calls about leaky pipes or late bills. I threw myself into work, taking extra shifts at the site, letting the rhythm of hammering nails drown out the noise in my head. I'd started to think maybe they'd gotten the message. Maybe Henry, Margaret, and Chloe had figured out how to stand on their own. Then my phone buzzed one evening while I was frying a burger in my kitchen. It was Margaret, a voicemail this time. Her voice trembled through the speaker. "Mason, we're in trouble. The bank's threatening foreclosure. Please call me back." I stood there, spatula in hand, the grease popping in the pan. Foreclosure? Already? I didn't call back. I deleted the message and flipped the burger, but my appetite was gone. The next day, Chloe hit me up. Her text came while I was on a break, sitting on a stack of lumber with dust clinging to my boots. "You're letting them lose the house over this? You're pathetic." Her words lit a fire in me. Pathetic? After everything I'd done, I shot back, "Use your inheritance, princess. That's what it's for." She replied fast, her tone sharper. "It's not that simple, Mason. Stop being a jerk." Not that simple? What the hell did that mean? I didn't bother asking. I shoved my phone in my pocket and went back to work, swinging my hammer harder than I needed to. Let her squirm. She wanted it all. She could handle it. That night, Lucas called again. I was sprawled on my couch, a beer sweating on the coffee table, when his name popped up. "You're not going to believe this," he said, his voice low, like he was spilling something big. "What now?" I asked, sitting up. "Chloe's broke. Blew half your parents' savings on some dumb candle business that tanked. Online store, handmade crap. Nobody bought it." I blinked, letting that sink in. "Half the savings? Gone?" Lucas laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "Yep. Heard it from my cousin who works at the bank. She's got nothing left to cash out, and the house payments are stacking up. Henry and Margaret are freaking out." I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Chloe, the golden child, had taken their money and torched it on a whim. Part of me wanted to laugh. Serves them right. But the other part just felt hollow. They'd bet on her, and she'd screwed them in record time. "They say anything to you?" I asked. Lucas paused. "Not directly, but your mom's been asking around, trying to borrow cash from neighbors. Nobody's biting." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "Thanks, man. Keep me posted." I hung up, the pieces clicking together. They were drowning, and Chloe's big inheritance wasn't the lifeboat they'd thought it'd be. Henry tried next. I was at work a few days later, hauling rebar, when Grayson, one of the guys on my crew, jogged over. "Hey, Mason, your dad called the office line. Sounded desperate." I wiped sweat off my forehead, squinting at him. "What did he say?" Grayson shrugged. "Just asked if you were around. Said it was urgent." Urgent, that word again. I had heard it too many times. Urgent when the water heater died. Urgent when the car wouldn't start. Always urgent when they needed me to fix something. "Tell the office to block his number," I said, turning back to the rebar. Grayson raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. "You got it, boss." By the end of the week, it was clear they were flailing. Lucas texted me a photo, foreclosure notice taped to their front door, bright yellow against the peeling paint. I stared at it, my thumb hovering over the screen. I could have stepped in. One call to the bank, a chunk of my savings, and I could have stopped it. But why? They'd made their choice. They'd picked Chloe, handed her everything, and she'd turned it to ash. I wasn't their safety net anymore. I put the phone down and cracked open another beer, the cold glass steady in my hand. They were cracking, falling apart faster than I'd expected. And me? I was done playing hero. Let them figure it out, or sink trying. It was a Wednesday evening, the kind where the air feels heavy, and the skies streaked with orange. I had just pulled into my apartment lot after a brutal day at the site, 10 hours of pouring concrete, my back screaming for a hot shower. All I wanted was to kick off my boots, crack a beer, and zone out. But as I swung my truck door shut, I saw them. Henry, Margaret, and Chloe, standing outside my building like some messed-up welcoming committee. Henry's beard was scruffy, unshaven for days. Margaret's eyes were puffy, red-rimmed, clutching her purse like it was holding her together. Chloe stood off to the side, gripping a to-go coffee cup, her hair a tangled mess. They looked wrecked, and for a split second, I almost felt sorry for them. Almost. I didn't run. I walked toward them, my work boots thudding against the pavement, each step steady and deliberate. Margaret saw me first. "Mason," she said, her voice too soft, like she could sweet-talk her way out of this. I stopped a few feet away, crossing my arms. "What are you doing here?" Henry stepped forward, hands in his pockets, trying to look calm. We need to talk, son. We're losing everything. His voice cracked on that last word, and I saw the panic in his eyes. Chloe just glared at me, her lips tight, like I'd personally offended her by existing. Losing everything? I echoed, tilting my head. You mean the house Chloe's supposed to take care of? Margaret jumped in, her words tumbling out fast. Mason, please, just help us this once. The bank's moving fast. We don't know what to do. I let out a sharp laugh, the sound cutting through the quiet lot. Help you? After what? I kept you going for years. Bills, repairs, groceries. And you thanked me by giving it all to her. I jerked my chin at Chloe, who flinched but didn't look away. Now she's broke, and you're begging me? Henry shifted, his jaw working like he was chewing on something bitter. We didn't mean to hurt you, Mason. We thought... I cut him off. Thought what? That I'd just keep paying while Chloe partied it away? Chloe finally snapped, her voice loud enough to turn heads from the next building over. You're selfish, Mason. You're letting them lose the house over some stupid grudge. Selfish. That word hit me like a brick, but I didn't flinch. I turned to her, my eyes narrowing. Selfish. I've been cleaning up your messes since you were a kid. You got everything. Where's it now? Her face went red, but before she could fire back, Henry dropped the bomb. His voice was low, almost a whisper. It's not just the mortgage, son. I froze, my arms dropping to my sides. What? He looked at Margaret, then back at me. There's a loan. 20 grand. We took it out years ago. Thought we'd pay it off with the savings. Chloe was supposed to handle it. My head snapped to Chloe. She stared at the ground, her coffee cup trembling in her hand. You knew about this? I asked, my voice cold. She didn't answer, just bit her lip. Henry kept going. She didn't pay it. Spent the money instead. Now the bank's calling it in. $20,000. A secret debt they'd kept from me, piled on top of everything else. I took a step closer, my boots scuffing the asphalt. You hid this from me. Let me bust my ass for you while you had this hanging over your heads, and you still gave her everything? Margaret's eyes filled with tears. We didn't know she'd... I held up a hand, stopping her. Don't. You picked her. You trusted her with it all, and she blew it. Chloe's head jerked up, her voice shrill. I didn't mean to. It's not my fault. Not your fault, I said, my tone deadly calm. You took their money, threw those parties, pissed away the savings on candles nobody wanted. This is on you. I looked at all three of them, their faces a mix of guilt and desperation. You dug this hole. Climb out yourselves. I turned to walk away, but Chloe lunged forward, grabbing my arm. Mason, wait! I shook her off hard. I'm done. She stumbled back, screaming after me. You can't just leave us like this! I didn't look back. I climbed the stairs to my apartment, their voices fading behind me, and shut the door. The lock clicked. That was it. The line was drawn. They'd made their bed. Now they could lie in it. The days after the showdown stretched into weeks, and the silence was louder than I had expected. No more frantic calls, no desperate texts lighting up my phone. I'd half thought they'd keep banging on my door, pleading for me to fix their mess, but nothing came. I went back to my routine, long days at the site, evenings tinkering with an old Chevy I'd picked up cheap at an auction. The work kept my hands busy and my mind off them. I wasn't waiting for an apology anymore. I was done hoping. Then Lucas texted me one morning while I was pouring coffee. House is on the market, slashed to half price, banks pushing hard. I set the pot down, staring at the words, half price. They were desperate. Chloe's back with them too, he added. No job, no cash. I didn't reply, just sipped my coffee and let the news settle. They were sinking fast. Margaret tried one last time a few days later. I was out on my balcony, watching the streetlights flicker on, when my phone buzzed. Her text was short, dripping with guilt. Mason, we raised you better than this. Please. Raised me better? I almost laughed. They'd raised me to carry them, to put their needs over mine, and when I stopped, I was the bad guy? I didn't respond. I deleted it, leaned back in my chair, and took a long breath. The air felt lighter, like I'd finally shaken off a weight I'd been hauling for years. I wasn't their mule anymore. I was free. I started focusing on me, really focusing. The Chevy became my project, something I'd always wanted to do, but never had time for between their emergencies. I'd spend nights in my garage, wrench in hand, stripping it down and building it back up. Grayson, my buddy from work, got into it too. "You're good at this, man," he said one evening, wiping grease off his hands. "We could flip these, make some real money." I grinned, tightening a bolt. "Yeah, maybe we will." For the first time in forever, I had cash that wasn't disappearing into their black hole. No late-night calls about busted pipes, no guilt trips over unpaid bills. Just me, living my life. Then Chloe pulled her stunt. I was scrolling through my phone one Saturday, coffee in hand, when Grayson called. "You see what your sister posted?" he asked, his voice tight. I frowned. "No, what now?" He sent me a screenshot. Chloe had gone online, some sob story on Facebook. "My brother abandoned us when we needed him most. Family's supposed to stick together, right?" She'd painted me as the villain, the cold-hearted son who'd left them to rot. My blood boiled. Abandon them? After everything I'd done? I wasn't letting that slide. I fired back, hard. I posted my own update, laying it all out. "Since Chloe wants to play this game, here's the truth. I paid their bills, fixed their house, kept them going for years. They left it all to her in the will, house, savings, everything. She blew it on parties and a failed business. Now they're crying because I won't clean up her mess." I attached proof, bank statements showing years of transfers, a photo of the will, texts begging for money. I hit post and watched the fallout. Comments flooded in fast. "Mason, you're a saint for putting up with that. Chloe's got some nerve. They took you for granted, man." Even Lucas chimed in, "Knew she was full of it." Within hours, Chloe deleted her post, but the damage was done. People saw her for what she was. After that, it went quiet again. Lucas kept me updated. House sold at a loss. Henry and Margaret downsized to a cramped rental. Chloe still crashing with them, no closer to figuring her life out. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. I'd said my piece, drawn my line, and walked away. One evening I stood on my balcony, a beer in hand, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The Chevy was almost done. Grayson and I were planning the next flip, and my phone stayed silent. No emergencies, no pleas, just peace. They'd made their choice, betting on Chloe and losing big. I'd made mine too, and for the first time in years, it felt like winning. I took a sip, the cold washing away the last of their hold on me. This was my life now, and I wasn't giving it back.